In a courtroom ruled by sharp wit and zero tolerance for nonsense, a series of unusual characters arrived believing they were in the right, only to face a judge who saw straight through their drama. One woman abandoned her belongings for months, then acted shocked when the new tenant cleared them out. Another man sparked a neighborhood war over the color of a fence he couldn't even see from his own house. A young dog sitter blamed the pet's owner for damage caused while the dog was under her watch, while a strict rental manager tried to charge a customer for simply changing plans. There was even a family who booked a cabin near a zipline, then demanded a refund because the zipline business, completely unrelated to the owners, was closed. In another case, a woman insisted she was the victim after accidentally hitting a child with her car, arguing that her broken mirror should be paid for. And finally, a man took a $10 haircut mishap and attempted to turn it into a $5,000 lawsuit. One by one, each dramatic complaint collapsed under common sense, leaving the judge to remind them that the courtroom is a place for justice, not theatrics. As the day went on, the courtroom seemed to transform into a stage for ordinary people who had convinced themselves they were heroes of their own battles. Two neighbors, locked in a petty feud over fallen twigs, escalated their conflict so far that one of them began shouting insults through a bullhorn, claiming it was free speech. Another woman arrived insisting she had been viciously wronged by a friend's dog, even though she had willingly agreed to watch the animal. Instead of listening, she argued over every sentence, as if louder words could replace logic. There was also a cottage owner desperate to explain her side while constantly interrupting at the worst moments, making her case weaker with every word. And through every dispute, the judge maintained the same calm authority, delivering firm reminders that life requires responsibility, honesty, and a little bit of common sense. By the end of the hearings, it became clear that most of these problems weren't legal crises. They were simply everyday frustrations that had spiraled out of control because the people involved refused to step back and think clearly. As the final cases unfolded, the courtroom atmosphere shifted from frustration to almost comedic disbelief. A woman who felt personally attacked over a painted fence insisted the entire neighborhood shared her outrage, even though she couldn't see the fence without walking far out of her way. Another argued that her vacation had been ruined because an activity near her rental cabin was closed, refusing to accept that the cabin owners had nothing to do with it. And then there were the people who believed rules should bend simply because their feelings were hurt, like the woman who claimed she was mistreated when asked to control her commentary, or the renter convinced she deserved money for her own bank fees after refusing to offer a basic refund. Each situation revealed a pattern. Ordinary issues magnified by inflated pride, impatience, and a refusal to accept responsibility. Through it all, the judge never wavered. With sharp humor and unwavering logic, she reminded every person that the courtroom was not a platform for emotional theatrics, but a place where simple truths rise above exaggerated claims. And by the end of the day, it was clear that the real lesson wasn't about the law. It was about humility, fairness, and learning to handle life's small frustrations without turning them into battles. By the last hour, the courtroom felt like a gallery of misunderstandings turned into mountains. One case involved a woman who argued so fiercely that she couldn't hear a single question being asked. Her frustration built not from the facts, but from her own refusal to pause and listen. Another dispute centered on a broken side mirror, where the driver seemed unable to grasp that a child's safety mattered far more than a damaged piece of plastic. In her mind, she was the one wronged, even though the near accident could have changed her life forever. And then came the man who marched and dressed with confidence, convinced that a $10 haircut qualified as a grand injustice worthy of thousands of dollars. His seriousness almost made the situation funnier, and yet it also revealed how easily pride can cloud judgment. The judge watched each case with the same steady patience, responding not with anger, but with clarity, cutting through excuses, exaggerations, and emotional outbursts. By the time the courtroom cleared, the stories left behind formed a striking pattern. Most conflicts weren't born from cruelty, but from stubbornness, pride, and the simple human tendency to believe we're right even when the truth is standing clearly in front of us. When the final echoes of footsteps faded from the courtroom, the judge sat back for a moment, reflecting on the day's parade of grievances. Each person had walked in carrying a small storm, some fueled by anger, others by confusion, and many by pride. Yet beneath every dramatic claim was a simple truth waiting to be uncovered. The neighbor who fought over a fence color wasn't really angry about paint. He was angry about losing control. The dog sitter who blamed the owner wasn't afraid of the damage. She was afraid of admitting responsibility. The vacationer who demanded a refund wasn't disappointed in the cabin. She was disappointed that reality didn't match her expectations. And the man with the haircut? He represented the all-too-common struggle of taking oneself a little too seriously. These weren't villains or heroes, just ordinary people caught in moments where emotion overshadowed reason. By the end of the day, the judge's firm decisions had done more than settle disputes. They had pulled each person back down to earth, reminding them that fairness isn't always about winning, but about understanding. And as the lights dimmed in the quiet courtroom, the stories left behind formed an unspoken message. Life becomes much easier when we choose humility over drama, patience over pride, and truth over theatrics. Outside the courthouse, the world carried on as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet each person who stepped out carried a lesson, whether they admitted it or not. Some walked away quietly, replaying the judge's words in their minds. Others muttered under their breath, still convinced they had been wronged by fate rather than their own choices. But deep down, every one of them had been given a rare moment of clarity. The neighbor with the bullhorn realized that shouting never brings peace. The property renter understood that rules don't bend just because plans change. And the woman who argued over every sentence finally learned that being heard requires first learning how to listen. Even the man with the $10 haircut found himself smiling despite his defeat, because the judge's sharp humor had exposed the silliness of his anger. The courtroom, in its own strange way, had become a mirror, reflecting not just the details of each case, but the deeper patterns of everyday life. Pride, impatience, misunderstanding, fear of admitting fault. All the small cracks that turn minor disagreements into unnecessary battles. And as the doors closed behind the last case of the day, it felt as if the courtroom had breathed out a long sigh, ready to reset itself for the next lineup of stories waiting to unfold. Evan walked deeper into the forest, every step pulling him closer to the truth he had been running from for years. The air around him seemed thicker now, as if the forest itself was waiting for his next move. The golden-eyed wolf followed silently at his side, no longer a threat but a guide. Strange symbols appeared on the trees, glowing marks that looked ancient, almost alive, as though they had been carved by a force older than the forest itself. Evan's heartbeat quickened, but he didn't stop. For the first time, he felt something stronger than fear, a sense of purpose. When he reached a small clearing, the earth beneath him trembled softly. A stone pedestal stood at the center, covered in moss yet shining faintly under the moonlight. As Evan approached, the wolf stepped forward and let out a low, harmonic howl. The pedestal responded with a soft pulse of gold. Evan placed his hand on the stone, and instantly, a surge of warmth shot through him. Visions flashed before his eyes. His father standing in the same clearing, the same wolf by his side, the same ancient glow surrounding him. Evan realized this place wasn't just mysterious. It was connected to his family, to a legacy he had never been told about. The light around him brightened, wrapping him like a shield of energy. And in that moment, Evan understood. He had finally found the doorway to the truth he had been searching for. The glow around Evan gradually faded, leaving behind a soft shimmer that lingered in the air like dust from another world. His breathing steadied as he tried to make sense of the visions he had just seen. The golden-eyed wolf sat beside him, calm and silent, as if waiting for Evan to speak first. But before he could form a single word, the ground beneath the pedestal shifted. A hidden compartment slowly opened, revealing an old wooden box wrapped in layers of time and mystery. Evan knelt down and gently lifted it out, feeling a strange warmth radiating from inside. The box wasn't locked, yet it felt sacred, as though it had been waiting only for him. When he opened it, he found a worn leather journal, its pages filled with hand-drawn maps, symbols, and notes written in his father's handwriting. His chest tightened. Every word told a story, about the forest, the wolf, and a secret order sworn to protect something called the first light. Evan had never heard the term before, but the moment he read it, the pedestal glowed faintly again, reacting to the journal's presence. The wolf stepped forward, touching its nose to the book, and the symbols on the pages sparked with soft golden lines, forming a path drawn in light. Evan understood instantly. This was more than just a journal. It was a guide, one his father had left behind, leading him toward a destiny he was only beginning to understand. Evan held the glowing journal tightly as the forest around him began to shift. The trees swayed without wind, their branches bending slowly toward the center of the clearing, as if bowing to a long-awaited moment. The golden path of light that had formed across the pages lifted into the air and stretched outward, carving a radiant trail between the trees. The wolf nudged Evan gently, urging him to follow. With a deep breath, he stepped onto the shining path. Instantly, the forest darkened around him, but the light beneath his feet grew brighter, guiding him forward. At the end of the trail, he found a stone archway half buried in roots and vines, pulsing with the same warm gold he had seen in the pedestal. As he approached, the journal glowed brighter, pages fluttering on their own until they stopped at a final handwritten message from his father. "When you reach the archway, do not fear. The first light will know you." Evan swallowed hard and reached out. The moment his fingers touched the arch, the vines retreated as though recognizing him. A wave of golden energy surged forward, surrounding him with warmth and clarity. The wolf howled, a deep, powerful sound that echoed through the entire forest. The archway opened, revealing a chamber filled with swirling light, ancient carvings, and a single orb floating at its center. The orb pulsed like a heartbeat. Evan stepped closer, feeling a strange pull in his chest. He reached out, and as soon as his hand met the orb's surface,